Hey guys, it's MatrEX21. I always say this when I'm recording and doing videos. I'm bad with the whole YouTube thing. I'm bad with the whole recording thing, the whole YouTube thing. I prefer to just live stream, but it is what it is. I'm going to, again, try to do just the video. I asked my daughter not to make a lot of noise. A lot of you guys follow me on the live streams. You guys know that I built a new gaming computer. We've been talking a lot about it. I said that I changed from my 7700K to a 3900X. And when I built my system and whatnot, I actually recorded everything. I did it probably a month ago at this point. But I really wanted to share with you guys the build and show you what I did. This is the build for me. I've normally have never been big into the RGB and flashy and stuff like that. Never been big into the whole RGB and flashy fan colors and stuff like that, but as you can tell behind me, this build, I wanted to make it something that was stood out, looked good, something I was super proud of. I had been building, built quite a few computers the last 6 months or so that I've sold. And I enjoy building and selling computers, and a couple of them I did make RGB builds, and I was like, wow, I love these look so good. And I'm like, you know what, I think it's about time for me I go with something bright and fancy and colorful. So since this is probably, I will not be upgrading or changing this once I get the new graphics card, because as you can tell right now I still have a GTX 1080. When I sell the old 7700K build, I'm going to be using that money to get a 2080. Once I'm done with the 2080, that's the last upgrade that I need for this computer. I don't plan on doing any upgrades unless something crazy comes out. I have no plans of doing any upgrades over the next 2 or 3 years, I think. I always say that, you know, I said that on my last upgrade, but I think a 3900X and a 2080 Super, 32 gigs of RAM, I think I'm pretty good. I think I got a pretty solid build, so I'm gonna be super happy. But I wanted to show you guys what I had now. I wanted to show you the build that I have now, and the only thing really that's left for it is putting the 2080 in it, and then there's really not much to it. It's going to look kind of like the card that I've got behind me, except it's going to say 2080. I figured, I don't know, you guys will like it. Hopefully you guys will like it. So why don't you sit back, kick back a couple minutes long, take a look at the build, and we'll talk about the parts after. Okay, so that was just a super quick edit. Trust me, it took so much longer. There was a couple of things like when I put my AIO in, I actually ended up kinking it a little, and I wasn't happy with how the thermals were on it, so I had to readjust my AIO. You'll see in the finished shots that it looks good, but initially when I did it, I ended up having a kink in it, so I had to fix that. Also, you'll notice originally that fan was up top. Probably about 2 or 3 weeks after, that fan started to get a rattle in it, and I had to move it from a horizontal to a vertical, and it got rid of the rattle. But actually, you can see the fans above my head now. I actually really miss having the RGB strip across there, so I might get another one of those fans and put it up top. But the problem is I think they're from Master Cooler. they're like 60 something dollar fans, and I spent a ridiculous amount of money on fans. That's my dog. My dog is hanging out. I spent a crazy amount of money on fans, but again, like I said, this build it's going to be my final build for a while. I don't plan on upgrading or changing or doing anything with it. So I did splurge on a few things. We'll talk about the parts. I got a 3900X. I got an overclock of 4.3 gigahertz on it. I haven't tried to go any higher with it. I hit 4.3 and I was just happy with 4.3, and I just really saw no reason to go any higher. I forget what the voltage was that I put it at, but I just remember it not being a super high voltage, so I actually feel like I may have got a good chip, but I haven't messed with it much more. I was happy with 4.3, and I got really good overclocks. The benchmarks from my stock to the overclock, I felt really good, and my thermals are like 75 Celsius, so I'm pretty happy with that. For the cooler, we put a 360 millimeter rad. It's in the front. It's on the other side of this colorful fan here is the 360 millimeter rad, and then I've got 3 fans in the front of it. So I get like really good airflow. Super happy with it. The motherboard, I went with the MSI X570-A PRO motherboard. I did want to get a 570 just to, I don't know, I wanted a 570. It's not getting utilized in its full manner, but I didn't want to get a new gen CPU with an old gen board, because just in case the next Ryzen CPUs have something crazy about it that I really want, I want it to be ahead on the motherboard, not behind on the motherboard. The RAM, I got 2 16 gig kits. So each stick was like a 4 8 gig sticks. I've got a nice 32 gigs of RAM, and it's ADD-RGB RAM. As you can tell, everything's synchronized. It looks amazing. The front of this case, I can see the front of my case because it's like right there in front of me. But the way I got the camera set up, I've got the green screen behind me. I get to sit here and stare at this computer all day and watch it change colors. Super happy with it. I don't need it flashing. I like the slow changes. Super happy with it. The software on here is kind of terrible, but when it does work, I'm happy with how it's going. It's just the software on it is just terrible. I got I got 2 3 terabyte hard disk drives. Those are running in a RAID 0. The reason why I went with the RAID 0 for my hard disk drives was I wanted that better speed of a RAID 0. And although I do understand if something happens, I'll lose everything on those drives. Everything that's on it is my Steam library, which I would like games to load as fast as I can. All of my games, not just my Steam library, all of my games are on it. And then when it comes to like any files or personal files or anything like that, I back everything up on cloud storage. I use multiple cloud programs, anywhere from third-party softwares that are backing up to their clouds, and then I actually have my own server over there, and everything backs up to that as well. So my data redundancy is crazy. I'm really not worried. If my RAID stopped working today, I'd be more upset that I just have to get another drive than anything that I've lost, because everything is redundantly backed up. By the way, if you're interested, I have another video that's going to be coming up of building my server computer, and then some discussion on some of the projects that I'm working on, of how I do some of the stuff at my home and how I control my workflow. And if you're interested in that, let me know, because a truck just went by when you try to record. Let me know if you're interested in any of the server projects that I'm working on. I think that I don't necessarily want to do like tutorials, because I still am entry level on a few of those things, but I've done them a few times enough to understand it, and I like the projects that I'm doing. So if you're interested in what I'm doing, I think they're super easy projects that anyone can do, and they might be things that you'd be interested in too. So let me know if you're interested in some videos on the server projects. Also on my list, originally I had put a Kingston. My original SSD for my old gaming computer was a 240 gig Kingston SSD, and I ended up in a situation where I had bought a 256 gigabyte M.2 for my server rig. Well, I ended up having to RMA it because it didn't work, but I needed to get my server computer rebuilt and up and stuff. So what it ended up working out for me, because I had a spare 128, which I put in my server. And then I decided, since the 256 was new and his M.2 would be faster than the original of the SSD that I had, I was like, well, shit, why don't I clone it over and we'll see if it's any better. So as you can tell now, I now have an M.2, which was not shown in the build video, but it was shown in the final because I literally put that in like 2 days ago. So it worked out for me. So I have a better SSD now in my build compared to what was before. But if you look at my link in the description, you'll see that I have the Kingston SSD in there because that was in there right up until a couple days ago. The case. This case, I love it, man. This case is so nice. It's some really thick tempered glass. Every time I take it off, I'm super crazy paranoid something's going to happen to it because it's one of those glass. It's not plastic. It's one of those tempered glass panels. Something just got in my eye. It's one of those tempered glass panels that, like, if something hits it, it's going to explode. What? It's going to explode. So, but it's so nice. It's just such a nice, the front and the side, really nice tempered glass. Super happy with it. And the RGB, I've got the 3 RGB fans, but then I also have a strip, like an RGB strip on it as well. So it's super nice. Really like it. The power supply, I just used the old one that I had in my other build, which was a Rosewill Hive 1000 watt. It was a spare power supply that I had laying around. On my last gaming rig, my power supply went. I had to put a new power supply in it, and that's what I had lying around. It's a 1000 watt power supply. It's a semi-modular power supply. It had the two CPU plugs that I needed, so I was super happy with it, and I kept it in. It's still running great. Got no problems with it. And then we talked about the graphics card. Right now I have an EVGA GTX 1080, the Superclock edition. We'll be changing to a 2080, RTX 2080 Super. As soon as I get my 7700K build sold, I'll use that money to get a 2080 Super, and then I will be super, and I'll be happy. So let me know what you guys think of the build. If you got any questions, let me know. It was actually a pretty easy build. There's a few silly things that I did, but I really didn't have any issues at all. I'm a super MSI fan. I get lots of MSI boards, Asus, ASRock. I like those boards. So I went with MSI because it was going to be my build, and that's what I like. And I just found everything to be really easy. I didn't have problems with anything. The XMP profile on the RAM was no problem. Overclocking the CPU was crazy easy. Everything just worked, and that's what I like, especially when I'm building my rig. Like, I just want everything to be perfect, and I want it to just work. And I found it all be super easy. Super happy with it. So thank you guys for watching the video. I look forward to future comments from you. Let me know if you're interested with any of the server projects I'm working on. When I say server projects, they're, for me, some of the VMs that I'm working on, how I share files across my home network, how I access my files out of my network. I have I use Pi-hole for a DNS ad blocker. I actually really like that. I think everyone should probably be looking into something like that. It was super easy to set up, and I've been running it for probably 2 months now, close to 2 months. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Till then, I'll see you guys later.